the rickshaw is about as big as this right here. You fit about this many people in it. We got luggage and stuff. So we check into a hotel, and I had brought over there with me a fifth of vodka to help ease my nerves. And also, I knew that Rashikar was a bit of a drinking man, so I figured we'd sit up all night and talk. And Rashikar would take a little drink, and he said, well, I'll see you in the morning, basically. Okay? So the next morning, and it turned out to be good, because the trip is about to get full. The next morning, there's a delegation to meet me. There's a delegation of Muslims, there's a delegation of Buddhists, there's a delegation of Hindus, and there's a delegation of people that are called tribals. This is a tribal person. And these are the clearest example of what the first people in India look like. In India, you have three components of black people historically. One, the first people over there are black, Africans. And then number two, you have those who developed the civilization. They're also the same thing. And then you have those of us who, like many other parts of the world, like us, were caught up in the slave experience and came to India voluntarily. Slaves didn't come from Africa. You know the rest. Africans were captured in Africa and enslaved and taken all over the world. If you look at those three things, that's what counts for the diffusion or the dispersal, what some people refer to as the diaspora of black people all over the world. India has all of those. And they were all there in that room to meet me. And they were delighted. They were probably more excited about meeting me than I was about meeting them. Because few people over there, even the educated elite, have ever met a black person from outside India. Nobody that I met had had any interaction with one. And for the most part, most people had never even seen one, not even on television. Now, there are a lot of black people even in North India. So how, and I always ask this question when I travel abroad, could they distinguish me from them? First of all, the hair. They didn't have straight to wavy hair. And it's not always black. Sometimes it's reddish and blonde, natural. And then I figured the other part must have been the wristwatch, you know, the bracelet, the sneakers, the jeans. All of those things set me apart. And so from the very beginning, I was a real curiosity piece. I was interviewed, I think, in that city alone by 3 or 4 newspapers. And I was taken all over the city. The first day, we went to visit the Ganges River. But more important than that, on the following day, I had a chance to tour the slum areas of Patna. And this is where the untouchables live. And just to review quickly, the untouchables are those, not all the untouchables are black. And I don't want to mislead you, but most of them are. The untouchables are largely the people who built the early civilization of India and whose descendants were ultimately defeated by the Aryans, the white people, the Indo-Europeans. That's right. The first white folks to enter into India are called Aryans. The term Aryan is the epitome of white supremacy. Isn't it interesting that those animals that killed that brother in Jasper, Texas, and I live in San Antonio, which can't be that far, were members of the Aryan Brotherhood, or the Aryan Nation. So when you hear that word Aryan, that's a buzzword for white supremacy. Right. The Nazis consider themselves Aryans. Right. So the Aryans is the name, the term Aryan is the name of the white people who invaded. They are truly barbarians. Savages in the truest sense of the word. And I'm not here to bash white people, that's not necessary. But I'm talking about savages. Had never seen a city, largely homosexual, women with few rights, children who are abandoned. They cremate the dead, but one thing about them, they are aggressive warriors, they're aggressive militarists. So they conquer all of northern India, and ultimately the whole of India, either physically or culturally, and impose a social order called Varna, V-A-R-N-A. That, in their language, means color. And this is the system that today is known as the caste system. It was originally based on color. And the more white blood you had in you, the more advanced you were. So it would be an intermediate thing. White folks, what they call the intermixed people, and then the masses of black people who had been conquered. And then outside of them, the untouchables, who themselves were black, but who were even slaves of the slaves. And just to briefly review, these people were not allowed to enter a village in the daytime. And it was thought that their shadows, the sounds of their voices, or their mere presence will cause pollution, ritual pollution to other members of society. So they were kept on the lowest rungs of the social ladder. They were outside the social ladder. In fact, They're oftentimes called outcasts, which means outside the caste system, which basically means outside the realm of humanity. And in this state of Bihar, cows have a higher status. This is true now. Cows have a higher status than untouchables. And most of them are black. And most of them are poor. Bihar, I wanted to go to Bihar, the kind of person I am, because I had always heard that Bihar was the most corrupt, backward, poorest, and oppressive part of India, where the untouchables had it the worst. So naturally, that's where I wanted to go. And they took me through these slums, and I went to 3 slum communities in the city. Lots of homeless people. The city is dirty. It stinks. You know, there are cows. There are water buffaloes, horses, chickens, donkeys, goats, and I was quite surprised to see, and dogs, of course, I was quite surprised to see a lot of pigs. And the ugliest pigs you could ever imagine. I saw one at night, and I said, man, what is that? I said, that's a pig. And I said, well, should we go this way? And he said, no, he won't bother you. I ain't used to seeing no pigs just wandering around at random, anywhere and everywhere, all over the city. And people are desperately poor. It is a decaying city, a very ancient city. So we toured the slums. Brothers and sisters, it was horrible. And that is too kind a word. I went in one area, 3 consecutive slum areas, one morning. And plus it's hot, close to 100 degrees, and it always makes a difference. People live tightly packed together. So you might have a hut with corrugated roofing or just thatch on top, maybe this big, and a depth of maybe here, maybe slightly bigger to the wall. And in that area you might have 6 people living, and maybe a cow and a goat, all in there. Flies, mosquitoes. This one area held 2,000 people, and there was one well to service everybody. They did the washing, drinking water, you name it, cleaning. And I went over and took a picture of them, and it was filled with, you know, green slime and mold on the side for 2,000 people. Everybody's barefooted, snotty nose, hair uncombed, spitting, defecating, urinating publicly. I saw one person, I said, how old is that person? He said, oh, I said, what is he, about 70? He said, he's 35. So this is horrible. You know, they took me to what they called a school, and it's really just like a bench with a side of a shed that has thatch on top. No textbooks, no notebook paper, no ink pens, no pencils, none of that. So I walked all through this. And you know, nobody asked me for any money. Now when you go to Egypt, bakshish, it's a way of life. Begging is a way of life. People don't beg because they're hungry. It's cultural. Over there, in spite of everything that had happened to these people, I sense this time more than ever before, that they still maintain their dignity. A lot of women have been forced to turn to prostitution, not to get crack cocaine, but to feed their family for one more day. So I asked the people that took me, I said, how are they viewed? Are they looked down on? He said, no. These women are doing what they have to do, and people accept that. So I was impressed by that. And so I walked through this area, hot, sweltering, a whole crowd of people following me. Now, they were told that I was a journalist, a United States African-American scholar named Runoko Rashidi, who had gone over there, and that sounded kind of like a Muslim name. Rashid is Islamic, or Muslim. So I had one of the little caps on, because the people that took me there were Muslims. One day I'd be with the Muslims, one day I'd be with the Buddhists, and then the Hindus every now and then. And every now and then a Christian would pop up, and then a tribal person would present himself from time to time. Now the one tribal person that I met in Patna, and I don't remember his name, he was from a group called the Santal. Y'all still with me? Yeah. He was the supervisor of police, because they have an affirmative action program over there too, that the government is trying to dismantle, just like over here. And so he wrote a letter to the police department so that I could have an armed escort all the time, so that no matter what happened, they were going to protect me. So most of the time I would go to a place and there'd be 6 or 7 men around me, some who would never literally take their eyes off me, and that can be unnerving too. So we go in this area, and finally it's hot now, and this is my first full day in Pot.